Hey guys, this is Mike from Shimino's Workshop. Here we have a Korbanth SkinnyFlex. This is Anakin's lightsaber from Revenge of the Sith. This is a Goth chassis, NeoPixel, Proffie. We have the blade plug. RogueArsenal Blade Plug has some shine through with NeoPixels. Main activation button, auxiliary under the clamp card. The slider switch. Wasn't a big fan of trying to get the slider switch to be the auxiliary or one of the buttons. There's just not a lot of room, not a movement I should say. Clamp card activation I felt was definitely the way to go. I'm wearing gloves on this one only because my fingerprints, once you start touching this chrome, this polished chrome, which is beautifully done, but fingerprints all over this. So I polished it. Well, I didn't polish it, but microfibered just to get it a nice shiny look. And I'll wear gloves for this one. Screw here for blade retention. And then I had a grip guide designed and 3D printed to get the grips on. And we have our cover tech screwed into the hilt where there was a hole. Does not go all the way through to the chassis. And we have vented pommel. Now, when I open this, these rings for the clamp, they turn, and under the clamp, I'll take that off in a minute and show, there's a couple of screws. If you allow these to turn and those screws are recessed too far, the screws will scuff this. So when I open the pommel side to access the kill key and recharge port, as you can see, I'm gripping my pinky here just to make sure that doesn't turn as I turn the pommel end, because I do not want that to get scuffed. Because as you can see, the top of the pommel end is recessed slightly under this ring. And if you tighten it too much, then when you loosen it, it could turn the ring, and then the ring could get scratched. So let's be careful with that. So always have a good grip before turning and taking the bottom piece off. So here we go. We can see we have our Proffie. We have our kill key. We have our 28mm TCS speaker. We got our Goth chassis. Alright, so I'll pull the kill key.
This is where the fun begins.
So being that this is Anakin from Revenge of the Sith, it makes sense to put some Revenge of the Sith fonts and sounds on it. So besides the core fonts for ProffieOS, I have some Anakin appropriate fonts, some backing tracks, and also one of the fonts are Evil Annie to represent his turn to the dark side. So we'll go through those. So let's get main ignition. Well done on the blade plug from RogueArsenal, the beautiful shine through ring. So we can do auxiliary for blaster block. If we hold the powered button down and tap, we'll activate Flash on Clash. and then if we long hold main power button, just some backing tracks from Revenge of the Sith that I felt were appropriate.
My powers have doubled since the last time we met.
So that's transitioned to the second font. He's getting a little bit more darker. That quote is obviously Annie. So same thing. It has the same backing track. The fonts on this, I believe the first one was Balance, so both KSith fonts. One is Balance, the other is the Light, and the third one, I believe, is one of Jesse Kirkbride's fonts, Jedi Sith font. So it's Jedi #1, and then I just added, some of my own.
You underestimate my power!
So that third font is, Annie turning to the dark side with a red. Now I realize Annie didn't have a red blade, but it felt appropriate, feels appropriate. So how do we go back?
My powers have doubled since the last time we met. This is where the fun begins.
So if we hold auxiliary and then tap power, we can go backwards in the preset. So now we're on the first preset. This commission called for a NeoPixel blade as well. So if we loosen up the blade, you can see the pop of the blade plug. It'll slide right out. This is a Space Window PCB, which has NeoPixels embedded, so makes building blade plugs real easy with NeoPixels. We'll put that off to the side, and here we have a 36-inch NeoPixel blade, custom saber shop style. Believe there's 130 pixels in this. Fits nice and snug into the chrome plated as well as the blade holder. It's recessed fairly far, so do you even need to tighten this down? Probably not, but I would. Get a nice snug fit. And we'll do some activations. Get a nice long blue blade. Hopefully that's coming across. So those are just some blaster blocks. Now if I hold power and then hit the hilt, that'll enable flash on clash. So we have a localized flash on clash here. You can see it's localized there into the middle.
My powers have doubled since the last time we met.
Okay, and we'll go to the second. Similar blue blade style. Also localized, just in a different section. And then the third one.
You underestimate my power!
Get a nice red. And again, And a nice localized, this time with white. Okay. Now the same thing. You can remove the blade, loosen the retention screw. Make sure it's backed out enough so that you don't scratch the blade as you pull it out. Now, because this is a snug fit, even though that this is the replacement piece, it's still snug. I had to sand down this blade just so that it would go in and out properly. But what I tend to do is turn it with, sort of with the grain, right? But kind of turning and pulling out. This way it stays, you know, this piece stays connected to the blade holder, and then she slides right out. And then we can put the blade plug back in. Right, because the pogo pins, I don't know if we'll be able to see in that far at all, but the pogo pins are recessed. All right, we can see. So it's a, you know, I don't know, maybe that's 2.5 inches. That's how recessed it is until you hit the pogo pins, and then, you know, maybe another 1/8 of an inch once you compress. So what I do is I'll slide it in, and then I'll use my finger to push the blade plug down, make sure it's nice and recessed. You don't have to go crazy with the blade retention. It's not going to come out. And we can activate again. So to go backwards, we're holding auxiliary and then pressing power.
My powers have doubled since the last time we met. This is where the fun begins.
Okay. So I'll forward to the 4th font. This is font number 1.
My powers have doubled since the last time we met.
2.
You underestimate
3.
my power.
TC.
4. So now we're in the core fonts. There's probably like 10 of them, with different colors and effects. I'll leave these on for now. This is a commission for a customer, so if you're watching, we can chat later. You let me know if you want me to keep these on or remove them.
Smooth Jedi.
I like to keep them on because it you know, it adds
Smooth gray.
some nice effects. It has some nice sounding smooth swing. But what I wanted to get to
TC.
Smooth.
is the last font.
Smooth.
This is where the fun begins.
Okay, so now I'm going to go backwards one.
Smooth Jedi.
So Smooth Jedi. Now this is the blade charging style. So with, you know, and this you should still be able to tell even with the blade plug. No?
This is where the fun begins.
Smooth Jedi.
Yeah, it doesn't ignite the blade. But what's happening with the blade charging preset, with the blade in, it will have a power level indicator on the blade showing your battery charge. This battery is almost fully charged. So the way that works, fully charged, the tip of the blade will be highlighted green, showing full. And then as the battery gets used, it turns to a blue and the indicator goes towards the middle of the blade. And then finally, when it's really drained, the indicator will go to the bottom of the blade. Maybe it turns red or orange or yellow. I usually don't let it get that far, so I'm not even sure the color it gets to be honest. But that's a nice feature. It is too bad we have to figure out some way to get the blade plug, maybe using some Blade ID resistor and having some other mechanism for charging. I know there are some discussions, or there at least were some discussions about how to accomplish that. I'm just not sure it's worked itself out yet into the main branch of ProffieOS. So last thing to go over, clamp card. It's held on with magnets. So I've glued some magnets on each, yeah, that's a good view, on each side to correspond to the location of the screws. I don't know if we can see the screw. There's a screw there, and there's a screw there. So the magnets are being held on to those screws, and it's a nice fit. And then also, here's our button, auxiliary button, using some tape, double-sided tape, where I left the that vinyl piece on, so it's not sticky or tacky, just to act as sort of like an anchor point or a pivot point, so that we can get a putt and push out of it.
This is where the fun begins.
And then this piece of tape here is just ensuring that we don't get any shorts. This piece of tape is covering the spring that's on the slider switch. See how it doesn't really move very well. And could I have cut the clamp? You know, there are two holes that the slider is going through. Could I have made those wider to allow for a more action, let's say, more sliding power? Sure, I could have. Did I want to? No, not necessarily. And just overall feel that using button push on the clamp card is a lot more effective than trying to push the slider. So we went with that. What else do we got? This is not a button. This is just a decorative, I don't know, piece of metal. It is not glued on. It is also a couple of pieces of double-sided tape holding that on. Because if you ever need to get into this hilt, we have to take the brass pins out. Obviously that has to come out. We just turn that to take that out. We have to take this out, and you have to take this out. So I did not want to glue this piece in, right? Just and I don't know, maybe some sort of suction, you know, something with a strong suction that we could affix to this piece, get a good grip, and then I bet we could probably pull it out. But we'll just hope that we don't need to ever maintain this or get into it. But at least using double-sided tape, it gives us better options than gluing that in. All right. And then this one though just screws out, right? And then you can see there's our button. Now the button that comes with the hilt is too tall. I think it was a 2 or 2.5 millimeter height plunger, you know, button, which was too tall. You couldn't even get the button, could not get the button or the PCB to slide in, unless I was doing something wrong. So I actually removed that button and put my own button that had a smaller height. But that didn't cause any issues. It allowed me to get the PCB button into the hilt, and I didn't have to do anything with this button. It's still, you can still push it down and hit that plunger without any problem. This is also, I believe, screwed. This piece here is screwed onto the hilt from the inside, which you can't see because of this piece here. And that's it. This is a gorgeous hilt, really. Korbanth, I believe, 89 sabers. I don't think Parks made this one for Korbanth. That's not a knock against Parks or in favor of anyone. but I know historically Parks had made a lot of the Korbanth Hilts. I just don't believe they made this one. But this is done very well. You know, room for improvements on design. Yeah, I definitely clamp card. You know, I think this, to be honest, not to toot my own horn, but I think going with these magnets on those screws was great. That should just be, that should have been part of that clamp, because they just give you the clamp card and then expect you to figure out how to get it to adhere. Certainly don't want to glue it on. So went magnetism, that's great. Improve on the slider switch so that there's more movement and better design for the internal mechanism, because you need some sort of button, right? They do, if you ask for it. Korbanth provided a button. I didn't really care for the button though, just again because of the slider switch. So, you know, 3D printed my own little button holder there. And you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but room for improvement there. And then third, this piece, room for improvement on how this well, it's not a button, but how this piece would attach to the hilt in a way that you could remove it. Very similar to this, maybe a low profile version of this, where the button or the piece can be screwed in. That would make this a lot better. And then lastly, hopefully lastly, these pins, not your standard Graflex pins. They don't have the 1/8 inch socket style, so you can't use a tool to get these out like a 1/8 inch tool like you can with the Graflex pins. They're rounded, so I had to, you know, I used my needle nose pliers, put some you know, some, oh geez, you know, some rubber on the you know, some heat shrink, sorry, some heat shrink on the two tips of the needle nose pliers. This way I don't scratch those, and now I have a nice set of needle nose pliers that have you know, heat shrink on the tips. And then just looking at the knurling here, beautifully done, very well done. I'm definitely gonna have my own, install my own once I stop installing everybody else's. Oh, and I'm sorry, last thing, I went with all 7 grips. I think if you looked at the Master Replica limited edition one, you'd see there might be only 6 grips. Korbanth gives you 7, so I guess the idea is, you know, personalize it. You want 6, use 6. You want 7, use 7. I went with 7. I feel like there's a better grip there with 7. But when you use 7, the screw for the cover tech is not long enough. So I had to, I think that's an M3. Maybe it's a 12 millimeter, maybe 10 millimeter length. But I had to use my own screw, just because of the depth. Because I think if you went 6 grip guides, the cover tech would better sit between the grips, and then the screw that they provided with the hilt would probably fit better. But all right, so with that said, again, very important. We're gripping this and then turning. Break that seal. Slide that out. And we can put our kill key back in. Okay, now on the internals, should be the last piece here. As we can see, we have good access to the...
This is where the fun begins.
Yep, I don't know if you can see that. The kill key that I use, you know, has the notch. So these are turnable kill keys. I tend not to use the turning feature, but you can just turn it without having to take the kill key out. But what I wanted to point out, good access to the SD card, a pair of tweezers, USB port, and good choice on the design on Goth's part here for Proffie, how it's how the kind of holds the Proffie snugly, no glue, no tape. You know, it's on there very nice. Lot of room for wire management. The battery is recessed up here. Obviously we got speaker and recharge port there, so a lot of room to work with here. So what's nice about that is you can just lift that up if you need to access anything under there. When you're done, simply push it down, and that's it. Okay. Any questions, let me know. Feel free to reach out and enjoy your saber. This was beautiful. All right, guys, thanks for watching.